Uh, well, I can't say he's the president because he's not, but he would like to be, poses an existential threat to our nation and a security risk for our nation. We have climate change that causes an existential threat to our
Man-made
nation.
climate change.
Man made climate change. All right. So, extreme weather events, increased frequency and intensity of hurricanes, floods, droughts, and wildfires can lead to significant loss of life and displacement of population.
That is so true because look what happened with Hurricane Eileen in Georgia and Florida. With over 200 people died of Hurricane Eileen just so far, and the death rate is climbing. Is climbing. And what's even more scarier about this, scientists have been warning about climate change for
Right.
years.
I'm on a live stream.
And
Okay.
scientists have been warning us about climate change for many, many years.
Yes, they have.
And then the predecessor tried to make climate change all about himself and lied about the governors and lied about Biden saying that we're not getting the things that we need, the Republican areas that we need, which that was a lie itself.
The predecessor has made everything about himself.
Oh man.
And basically, one of the things is that true is fact. And climate change is one of those existential threats that needs to come out right now, along with the predecessor as being a threat.
And national security threat and the threat to our planet.
We have rising sea levels, melting ice caps, and glaciers contribute to rising sea levels, threatening coastal communities and leading to potential loss of land and habitat for millions.
Well, we're seeing it with that. We're right now what's happening in California, what's happening in Florida about the coastal state with the wildfires and the flooding that is going on. That we're seeing 1,000-year events almost frequently every single year. Do you know who also believes in climate change? Insurance companies believe in climate change. Insurance companies such as Allstate, State Farm, they believe in climate change. What they're doing, here's what's going to happen. When you live in those coastal communities, you're not even going to get insurance. You got State Farm and insurance companies leaving Florida and California because of climate change. And those that don't live in climate change states, guess what's going to happen to our rates? Our rates are going to go up because of it. Some as much as 25 to 30%.
Also, you have food and water security. Climate change affects agriculture, productivity, and freshwater availability. Uh, Partially due to food shortage and water scarcity, which can incite conflict and migration.
We're already seeing it right now, like in Africa, in some places like Africa, and some places like in Arizona, where it's just so hot, it's just unlivable. That we're gonna be seeing more immigrants coming because of climate change. And what's also gonna be seen is more hatred because of it as well.
So whenever we have food and water scarcity, you also see a lot of high crime and theft in areas that normally don't have the high crime and theft. But
They're desperate because they ran out of food because of climate change.
okay, we have biodiversity loss. The ecosystem disruption can lead to extinction of species, which destabilize food webs and diminish natural resources that humans rely on. Yes, a lot of our food that if when we have these hurricanes, our food is what destroyed.
Our food is destroyed. Farmers are getting destroyed. Our meat is going to go higher. We see the food prices because of inflation, because of climate change.
Maybe
Our
that's
meats are going higher because of climate change.
maybe that's what J.D. Vance was talking about uh, when he was talking about people was eating dogs and cats in the community because we had a couple of hurricanes, but we know that he's basically off center. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
The lie about the Haitians eating dogs and cats, and that's another time for another day. Hello.
so we have health risks. Changes in climate can exacerbate, which makes it worse, health issues, including heat-related illnesses, respiratory problems from poor air quality, and the spread of infectious disease.
Yeah, climate change that is destroying with infectious disease is a very serious problem. We're seeing more people dying of more infectious diseases because of climate change that don't have enough immune systems. We're seeing more people with asthma going up because of climate change. For example, people getting sicker more and more, and which is the only one that's good news because of healthcare, because of climate change, are the greedy insurance companies.
But when you
And also the greedy pharmaceutical companies, because that just means more medicine for them.
But when you see an outbreak like with climate change, then that means that puts a lot of pressure on the medical industry, the pharmaceutical companies to push out medicine or medication and to help the community. So that's why it's such a health risk because they may not have the supplies or the equipment, just like with COVID. They had to come up with a lot of the vaccines within a hurry. So you get a massive hurricane, that type of destruction, and so many people that's without food, water, electricity. Uh, their health is going to diminish quickly. After that, we have economic impact. The costs associated with climate change, such as damage to infrastructures, increased healthcare costs, and loss of productivity, constrain economic and exacerbate inequality. Another worse situation.
It could exacerbate people with inequality if you don't fix the climate crisis. We cannot drill. We cannot do like Sarah Palin was said, drill baby drill. You cannot drill your way out of this. We have to get off of fossil fuels within 50 years. We own 50 years.
And
If
it's
we don't get off of fossil fuels within 50 years, and if the planet goes like 0.9%, our planet is just unlivable for generations to come.
so who's going to suffer the
So
most? What communities?
throughout,
Who's going to suffer the most? I can tell you who's going to suffer the most. The first ones that's going to suffer because of climate change is going to be the people of color, which is African Americans and Latinos.
Okay. So we have social and political instability, resources, scarcity, and displacement can lead to social unrest, conflict, and changes to governance, further destabilizing regions.
We're seeing that right now in Europe. Like, look at what's happening with Germany, with the East Germans voting the ADF. That is a threat to democracy, the ADF. We see what is happening in Austria when you have the far right winning in Austria with a Nazi past living in Austria. That's what we're seeing right there. And they're blaming immigrants. Imagine with climate change, it's going to make disaster even worse.
Overall, a cumulative effect of climate change threatens not only the environment, but also human existence, well being, and social structure, making a critical global challenge. And that global challenge means that with the climate change, the effect that it has on the earth, it can make us all exit extinct.
Yeah, they can make humankind extinct.
So, you have anything else to say about climate change?
What I have to say about climate change is that climate change has made certain states like Florida and California unlivable. Florida already had its problems way before climate change. Let me give you another statistic with Florida that's really good. If you're living in Florida, if you're a condo owner that's living with the climate change in Florida, 80% of the condos that are in Florida are are structurally deficient. That just means so 80% of the condos in Florida are structurally deficient.
So, should anybody be racing out to Florida? Because that used to be the greatest.
That used to be the greatest place for seniors, like taxes for low taxes. But what do you get in return because of it? You get more floods. If you're not going to get no insurance because of climate change, and what they're going to do with the insurance companies, they're going to do what it's called blue lining. And what is blue lining? Blue lining is like environmental lines where they say if you live in a certain community, like a coastal community in Florida or in California, Georgia, North Carolina, they're not even going to insure you. Or let's just say you get some insurance in California and Florida. Good luck with that. They're going to charge you as much as 33%. 33%. That's just 33% if you live in those communities. Or they're just not going to insure you at all.
So you're not going to be advising any person that's retiring or anybody that wants to go to Florida to be headed that way
Because of climate change.
And what about Texas?
And in Texas, with the wildfires going on in Texas and the droughts in Texas, I would not advise them to go to Texas either because of the drought and climate change and deregulation in Texas.
So what are some good places to go, I mean, we really can't avoid it because
I mean, you can't avoid it because, right, you can't really avoid climate change, but you can do what you can to really mitigate the damage of climate change, like living like in the Midwest, for instance, like Kansas City, for instance. That's it. If you're in the United States.
But we get tornadoes.
We get tornadoes and things like that, but we get all 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get what we call blackberry winter. And what is a blackberry winter? Blackberry winter is that we don't get any snow. And every once in a while we have a snowstorm. That's once out of 10 years. That's once out of 10 years. So living in the Midwest may be able to mitigate some climate change problems.
Well, do you think that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is doing really well?
When it's coming to the climate change, because the predecessor withdrew from the climate agreement, okay?
And so if he got back in,
the planet would be dead. And there's some island nations like the Maldives, they are sinking because of climate change. One of the presidents of the Maldives and other island nations has been sounding the alarm on climate change. They could lose a nation. And some of them had to immigrate to Europe or the United States because of their land is about to be lost because of climate change, about to sink.
So on that note, the existential threat, which is climate change, doesn't need existential threat to be
or climate deniers saying that it don't exist. Climate change does exist. The real question is we gotta build other businesses to deal with climate change. Start companies that will be able to deal with climate change. Like one, you can and get off of oil or turn your trash into oil. Like turning these trash cans like those landfills into oil or turning our waste into oil, like working with farmers and buying the waste and turning waste into oil.
Well, no matter what happens, we need a Congress that's going to be able
that actually believes in science. Because we need science, not religion, not no hope. We need the people that believe in science and know what the hell they're talking about.
So if you take the experts out, which Project 2025 was trying to do, what's going to happen?
Under Project 2025, they're going to take out the weather service, like the free weather service, and privatize the weather service and charge you to get information that you need to prepare for climate change and prepare for where you're living.
Can you see the Supreme Court making decisions on climate change when they can't even make decisions on their own briefs?
No, they can. I can see it happen. I do see it, and it will be a nightmare. I see it, and we got to stop it we got to stop that future before it gets the damage.
Well,
because the Supreme Court just today declined a challenge where to stop methane. That's a start.
Yeah. They've started a long time ago. They've had this plan for years. But in the meantime, you got anything else on climate change you'd like to say?
What I would also like to say when it comes to climate change is that we are going to have to work together and work with the scientists, build companies to end climate change. Because if we do not stop climate change, Our generations, like Generation Alpha, will never forgive us. They will be asking you, I'm a millennium, okay? Generation Z, this is our challenge to the generation. And Generation Alpha, they will ask us, what did you do to 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 stop climate change? I don't want to be that generation that fails, Generation Alpha, or the next generations that failed to protect our planet. And then you had Elon Musk talking about traveling to the moon or traveling to Mars. How about we just take care of the things on Earth first? Because don't bring the same problems from Earth to Mars. Okay?
All right. So, on that note,
On that note, we are out of here, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace and good luck. And we need to stop climate change before it gets worse for our children and our grandchildren.